episode 435 of Cinematary. I'm your host, Zach Dennis, and I'm here with
Andrew Swafford.
And in today's episode, I will try to say the correct episode title and number throughout the entire episode, unlike last week where I had a dyslexic episode.
Oh, I did not even notice.
I kept calling it 344 or something. I don't know. It was bad. It was a whole... I was like listening back and I'm like, I wish you were like moderately intelligent. Well, in this episode, we're going to be hitting movies that we saw this week in part 1. And in part 2, we're going to be doing our second Patreon pick movie, which is 1961's Blast of Silence, courtesy of Chad Newsom.
Thank you, Chad.
Yeah, thank you, Chad. All right, well let's go ahead and jump into stuff. Let's jump into the whole things. I'm gonna give it over to you just since you have the new release, which is not Avatar 2. I'll just find you.
I have not seen The Ways of Water or whatever that movie is called.
It seems like one that we need like Michael to see and like you come up with something.
Maybe. Yeah, I don't know if we have any James Cameron heads in Cinematary right now, but, the discourse is probably better off without us on that one. Anyways, the movie that I saw this week is Noah Baumbach's White Noise, which is a movie that I've been anticipating for some time, not necessarily because I thought it would be good, but because I just felt like I needed to see it. This is an adaptation of a novel I like a lot by Don DeLillo. It came out in 1984. It is a classic postmodernist novel that is about a lot of things, most centrally, I guess, consumerism and the various ways in which our consumerist society sort of affects the human psyche. And also it's about academia and all sorts of other stuff, just kind of in this big, strange, postmodern-y mix of a novel. And the reason I've been looking forward to watching the movie is that it is a novel that doesn't really feel like it lends itself to being a movie. It's very cerebral, does not have any sort of, clear narrative through line. It's just kind of bopping around from topic to topic. There is a big spectacle in the middle of the book called The Airborne Toxic Event that is very cinematic, but it is not exactly like the focal point of the story. So I didn't really know how they were going to do this. It just feels like an unfilmable book to me. And after seeing it, I can confirm this does not translate to a good movie, in my opinion. Noah Baumbach and company have given this like the most literal treatment possible. You have almost every single element of the book here, but that I think that it would probably be better if they had taken some more creative liberties and made it into something that made more sense as a movie. What we have instead is just this very strange, stiff dramatization of the book's laundry list of strange scenes and character interactions. And I can't really imagine what a viewer who has not read the book is going to take away from this movie. It's just really bizarre. And I'm struggling to articulate exactly what is bizarre about it. But anyways, the basic plot of this, it stars Adam Driver and Greta Gerwig as Jack Gladney and Babette Gladney. Jack is an academic. He has pioneered his own field in academia, which is Hitler studies. You see him give presentations on the psyche of German citizens going to attend a Hitler rally, where he talks about the most baseline desire that is being fulfilled by attending the rally is the desire to be part of a crowd. Babette, his wife, again played by Greta Gerwig, what she does is a little more unclear. She teaches classes that vary from like you see her doing some sort of aerobic stuff in the movie, but she also talks about teaching eating classes, and in the book it mentions her teaching walking classes and things like that. And so there's somewhat of a spoof here of people teaching things that or kind of like becoming experts in things that are not traditionally thought of as academic pursuits. There's also a character named Murray, played in the movie by Don Cheadle, who studies car crashes in American cinema. And then later he tries to pivot to being an Elvis scholar. So it's sort of a send-up of the ways in which pop culture gets filtered through an academic lens. There's an early scene, I think the first scene of the movie is Don Cheadle's character explaining the deep hidden meaning of car crashes in American movies and how they're actually this expression of like freedom and American optimism and things like that. So the basic takeaway, I guess, is that academia can kind of get up its own ass a little bit and just like ascribe meaning to things that were not ever intended to be read as such. But where it goes from that setup is strange. You get a lot of scenes of these characters interacting in their home and just having these overlapping Robert Altman-esque conversations. Adam Driver's character and Greta Gerwig's character have a conversation about like who should die first. It's like the kinds of things they're talking about are just not things that are generally discussed in a narrative film. And as I mentioned earlier, there is this big spectacular thing that happens in the middle of it called the airborne toxic event, where an oil tanker hits a train that is carrying a bunch of radioactive material, and it becomes this great cloud that is floating over the city. And I wonder if what inspired the making of this movie was COVID, because there's a lot of focus paid to the public reaction to this huge toxic event, and people's paranoia about how much they have been exposed to it and what symptoms they're supposed to have and what emotional reaction they're supposed to have. There's also that idea about like people wanting to be part of a crowd. When you in a scene where one of Jack's daughters is looking into the windows of other cars, trying to figure out how other people are feeling in this moment so that she can attune her own reaction to the way that she's supposed to feel. It then veers in the third act into something different entirely, which is, Jack going on into this like almost detective story of trying to figure out what is this strange medicine that he's found that his wife is secretly taking behind his back. And it turns out, I guess spoilers for this thing that doesn't really make all that much sense, that the medicine is meant to like stave off the fear of death. And she has gotten it through a classified ad in a tabloid. And so there's kind of a strain running through the story about people like trying to look to American pop culture and mass media like tabloids for the answers to these like deep human questions that can never truly be answered, whether they're looking in tabloid newspapers or in Elvis or in car crashes or in whatever. And yeah, it just doesn't really all come together, and it doesn't feel right on the screen. The way the dialogue is written is just really sardonic and satirical, and just doesn't feel human. And when you're reading a novel, especially a novel that's written in this heightened academic language, there is a certain degree of remove that you have as a reader from, the reality of these conversations. And just to see it all dramatized in this overly literal sense, it just feels weird. It feels wrong. It feels off. And maybe that is what Noah Baumbach wants us to feel. I don't know. But for me, the part of the movie that was most successful was the part that went off script from DeLillo's novel. The last scene of the novel involves, but is not limited to, the Gladney family going to the supermarket, and the supermarket is described in these like utopian, almost religious terms as like, this is a place where people gather and celebrate something sacred. And in the movie, this is the credit sequence, and it is done as a song and dance number to this new song by LCD Sound System that was written for the movie. That is just like a banger of a song. I love this song. It's called New Body Rumba. I would definitely recommend listening to the song, even if you do not go watch the movie. And in the movie, you see all these characters just doing these interpretive dances to this song with the various products that they're buying, grabbing a box of cereal and like pirouetting around the aisle with it to the rhythm of the song. And at no point does anybody ever like talk about the significance of the supermarket, but they're kind of embodying it and acting it out in a way that feels more in conversation with the language of film. Musicals are kind of in and of themselves this utopian expression of like, humans coming together and achieving these larger than life, physical feats. And that to me felt like it was an expression of like the spirit of what was going on in the novel without, writing out every single letter of it. And there's also things that are just better in prose. Like the novel also includes a lot of lists of things. Like the very first page of the book involves Jack watching a procession of incoming freshmen driving into his college, and he starts describing all the things that are being taken out of their station wagons. Stereo sets, radios, personal computers, small refrigerators and table ranges, the cartons of phonograph records and cassettes, the hair dryers and styling irons, the tennis rackets, soccer balls, hockey and lacrosse sticks, etc., etc., etc. And like, these are not things that can really be translated to film, because there's something about like seeing all those things just like chunked into this list that you can choose to read in minute detail, or just kind of let your eyes glaze over. Like that, just it just works better as a book. Like that is my thesis of my review. And I think that the actors all do a perfectly fine job. Adam Driver is kind of channeling some of the things he was doing in Annette last year. Greta Gerwig, I was mostly struck by how they did Greta Gerwig's hair in this movie. Babette's hair is described at length as just like being this like really huge, frizzy, curly blonde mane. One character says that she has important hair, and that they capture the importance of the hair really well in the way that they make up her character. But yeah, it just feels weird. Noah Baumbach's dialogue in his other movies does feel like not so far removed from what DeLillo is doing in the dialogue in his novel. It is kind of academic and arch and distanced in a way. But for some reason, it just doesn't quite work here. I mean, maybe part of it is like the overlapping dialogue doesn't feel like it works because I want to be able to experience kind of the full impact of all these ridiculous things that get said. But yeah, it just doesn't quite work for me.
Well, it seems also kind of off because he has dialogue. It's very like it's usually like with like different, you know, personalities, relationships, things like that. And almost from what you're describing in terms of like how it kind of should be handling the material broadly, it seems like something more like what Paul Thomas Anderson has been doing recently with like a, you know, Inherent Vice or Licorice Pizza or something, which is like dealing with a lot of stuff on the outside but having this very insular story in the inside.
Yeah, I could see maybe Paul Thomas Anderson having an easier time with white noise. I think that the conspiratorial tone that Inherent Vice is able to strike, I think, is more along the lines of what a white noise adaptation should feel like. This just feels like a dramatization of like the literal facts of the plot, which doesn't really, like, the plot is just not the most important thing about it. It doesn't have a traditional 3-act structure. It doesn't have a super coherent through line. It's just kind of this very cerebral, floating, you know, pseudo-academic thing. So it'll be on Netflix soon. It's a Netflix movie, although it was produced, I think, in association with A24. So people can, you know, watch it at no cost very soon and make up their own mind about it. But if this is not obvious at this point in the review, I do very much recommend reading the novel. It's fantastic. But movie, not so much. IMO.
I just like you said that Adam Driver has like the same Annette energy. It's like, you know, person only watches Annette. That's the only movie they watch, and I'm getting Annette vibes from this.
It's not the Annette vibes of like when he's on stage and like pretending to be a monkey and stuff like that. It's more like the vibes of him in these strange musical numbers in Annette, talking about, I'm traveling across the world. I'm traveling across the world. Like, it's just so dry and overly literal that it is funny at times.
All right. Well, White Noise, like you said, it'll be on Netflix soon, so you can compete with family members. Do we want to watch White Noise or do we want to watch Glass Onion?
You definitely want to watch Glass Onion. Yeah.
All right, cool. Well, I got one. This one's a older release, but Merry Christmas, Mr. Lawrence. Not totally a Christmas movie. It's just it had it in the title, so I was like, I better watch it around Christmas time. There's a very pivotal scene in it that takes place at Christmas, but not inherently whatever. It could be a Christmas movie. It's, you know.
I think that Blast of Silence is a Christmas movie.
Oh, 100%. That's how it was sold to me, was it's like a Christmas noir. And I was like, hell yeah, let's do that. It's kind of, I would say it's Christmassy in the same way. But Merry Christmas, Mr. Lawrence. It's from 1983. It's directed by Nagisha Oshima, who we destroyed earlier this year for In the Realm of the Senses, which strangely for our YouTube people is like one of our most popular YouTube episoose. So
that's just people trying to watch porn on YouTube.
I know, that's how I like finagled the like SEO on it. I was like where are all you perverts at? And you got to listen to us. This one, there's no pornography in this one. It's a very starch like counter to that. But it takes place in 1942. They're in Java. It's during World War II, you have this Japanese what am I thinking of? Prisoners of war, Japanese prisoner of war camp for British soldiers, and you have Colonel Lawrence, played by Tom Conti, who's very good in this. There's a lot of like Tom Conti, like just face and like looks and stuff that he gives that are just great. He just has like this kind of like sensitivity to it. You know, you think it very much throws you off. This is like for like something that's a war movie, you never really feel, it doesn't feel like a war movie, even though it's taking place during World War II. I can see why I don't see this necessarily like linked to other very famous World War II movies. But Colonel Lawrence, he's a British colonel, but he has a really pretty extensive knowledge of Japanese culture, as well as he can speak it. And so he kind of plays as this liaison between the camp, the British soldiers in the camp, and the two people kind of running the camp. You have Sergeant Hara, who is kind of the strong man who comes in and keeps people in line, and then Captain Yanoi, who is the Ryuichi Sakamoto character, who is the captain of the camp. And so the beginning of the movie is very much just kind of like getting a sense of the dichotomies there. Lawrence is somebody who clearly has influence with Sergeant Hara and Captain Yanoi, but at the same time is a prisoner of war. And the movie kicks off where Sergeant Hara and a number of other soldiers are trying to kind of do almost like a pirate court of these two. One, it's a Dutch soldier who is imprisoned there, and one of the I think they say he's Korean though, but one of the officers at the camp who they allege were taking part in having sex. But they don't really get into detail of what they were doing, but they're accused of having sex, and they're kind of just thrown in this field, and Sergeant Hara and a lot of the soldiers are just kind of belittling them, saying that they're going to kill them and all this kind of stuff, and it's completely stopped by Captain Yanoi, who eventually comes over and kind of sets up that there has to be kind of ground rules in play. There has to be kind of a proper trial to a degree, which is it kind of sets the scene for the two sides of the movie that you're going to see. One, you do have this kind of homoeroticism that's kind of piercing through the movie between the characters. And then two, you have like this, despite the chaos of like the war and all, the situation they're in, there is like this structure to it. Like, there's not, you're only really getting in trouble if you're diverting away from the structure, which is kind of interesting because it's, and that, it's not like The Great Escape. It's not, I'm trying to think, like other encampment movies where it's just like this need to, like, to a degree, the soldiers, the British soldiers here, like, they would like to get out, but they still have like a hierarchy and a structure to it, so that it's not like they're just living in holes, trying to barely eat and drink. At one point, Captain Yanoi makes this comment that, like, the soldiers are eating the same stuff as my soldiers. Eating and drinking the same stuff as my soldiers. And so, like, that first scene, one, it kind of just, this gay subtext is kind of introduced, but also this degree of order that the camp has, that Captain Yanoi kind of really puts into place. And then he moves on to this trial where you have British Major Jack Sellers, who is the David Bowie character, is on trial. He is... they're accusing him of trying to, like, fight off this, turn this village against the Japanese soldiers and fight them off, when he clarifies that he actually surrendered to them and let a lot of his soldiers run off, and he surrendered to the Japanese army and has been going through these different camps. And so initially they want to just kind of kill him on the spot, but Captain Yanoi... They convince him, or he convinces them to allow him to just join this camp as well. And there's like this immediate kind of recognition between Captain Yanoi and Jack Sellers. I think it's more on the captain's side really than the major. It's interesting. You have this subtext. And like what's fascinating about the casting of David Bowie here is that I think just naturally, because like David Bowie is just naturally androgynous, and just immediately you're like, yeah, everybody's attracted to him, no matter who they are. He doesn't ever have to like work hard to exude this this like interest, like or at least like he isn't necessarily like his levels of interest and levels of like ways that he deals or that he interacts with the captain is very subtle, because I think just naturally he just kind of exudes that androgyny. And so the captain is much more like it's almost like the scene in the courtroom is like something like awakens in him, and he's just like transfixed to a degree by the major. And so then he enters the camp, and the rest of the film is a lot of just these push and pulls between the camp. I mean, you have Jack Thompson, who plays the leader among the British soldiers for the camp, which again goes back to this like strange structure. Like Lawrence is not really the leader of them; he's just kind of this liaison. You have the Jack Thompson character, who kind of is the figurehead for the British soldiers, who, you know, whenever a decision is made, like they like meet in a room and like go over stuff and like somewhat negotiate, which kind of throws me off, because I'm like, no, like they capture like why are you at the table negotiating? But they always they have like a lot of these scenes of negotiation on like, well, we'll do that, or we won't give up that, or, you know, things like that, things similar to that. And it's interesting. You also have this whole thing where the captain is constantly asking him to give over the soldiers of his that have like weapons experts, people like that, and he just like kind of keeps not doing it. And for a while it kind of, you know, it's annoying him, but it's fine. But then as things begin to escalate, as he becomes more unsturdy like in his position, because he's just kind of transfixed by the David Bowie character, he feels like, to a degree also, Lawrence is kind of pushing this, almost trying to influence him deeper and kind of almost talk to him as like almost peer to peer. He just kind of becomes much more inscrutable, and just kind of stubborn, to the point where you start to kind of get these push and pulls and these near death situations among a lot of the soldiers. I was reading a little bit from Logan Kinney, his review that he wrote of this movie for Cinematary, and he also kind of gets at like it's an interesting movie in terms of like queer canon, because and Logan says it's not explicitly gay or not really explicitly queer. I think you could watch this. I think in theory you could watch this. You may not be a super perceptive person, but you could watch this and never assume that anybody in this is gay. But because I think a lot of that is real subtext and is very subtle. The only like expressively homoerotic moments is a little bit of the first time they meet in the trial. There's like a scene where David Bowie takes his shirt off, and he's getting like, you know, sprayed off or something like that. And then you have the pretty famous scene where the captain is about to execute the Jack Thompson character, and David Bowie like springs in front of him and like kind of kisses both of his cheeks, and then it's just, and like you kind of have this like freeze frame where like Ryuichi Sakamoto is like just shocked, and then like, you know, it breaks and you see them like tackling David Bowie, which then leads to the captain leaving and David Bowie being tortured into what eventually will become his death. And so it's just kind of a fascinating film on that level, just because it's so I forgot how looking real quickly at how Logan described it. He talks a lot about it's a movie about repression and just kind of the unattainable that, as he says, despite Merry Christmas, Mr. Lawrence having no explicit moments of gayness or anything physical beyond a brief shirtless scene, 2 kisses to the cheek, and the cutting of hair, it's the first film I think of when I think of queer men in cinema. They stare into each other's eyes. They know that this longing will exist in their hearts until they stop beating. Like, you know, there's just kind of this unspokenness to the relationship. And and it's kind of, it's fast, you know, I think initially, like coming straight out of it, it didn't really, I was kind of like, wasn't totally sure what to make of it, but it's been one that's kind of stuck with me just because of like the subtleties in these performances. In terms of being a war movie, like I mentioned before, it's not, it's much more about like the connections that these men make within the confines of this greater conflict. You know, you see like the relationship between Sellers and Lawrence, or Lawrence and Hara, or Lawrence and the captain. You know, the movie ends with Lawrence catching up with Sergeant Hara, who survives the war but is going to be executed for war crimes in England. And you know, it's a really moving sequence because they've kind of gone and so like the relationship has been very rocky over the course of the movie, but there like is kind of this sense of completion. And Logan kind of hits on that in his review, where he says that you know, a lot of queer movies like this, they always end in, you know, gay tragedy, and there's like that pain there. But this is one, I kind of agree with him that it does end in gay tragedy. Both the Bowie character and the Sakamoto character end up dying, but it doesn't really feel painful. It kind of, you know, it kind of moves beyond that and is more about just just kind of the general tragedy of loss, and like how people kind of connect in these small moments that have great impact. And kind of becomes more about like a history of community rather than these two individual figures. So it's, I don't know, I think it's worthwhile to watch. It's on Criterion Channel right now.
Does Sakamoto do the score?
And Sakamoto does the score, and it's awesome. That's where if you listen to anything, go and listen to his Merry Christmas, Mr. Lawrence, like the title sequence. It's a great piece.
What mode is he working in for this movie?
It's very electronic. Which again, it kind of has like this weird dissonance with like World War II war, and then this kind of electronic score. But I think it works because it channels in more on like the relationship in that aspect, rather than like, because again, like you're not going to come into this and be like, we're going to get a good old like fight sequence. I mean, they kill one person with a samurai sword, but it's not a great sequence. But there's no like, other than them like being in this situation, you wouldn't really know that there's a war going on. It really doesn't engage in the broader conflict. So that's what kind of like I had to kind of work through how to make sense of this as somebody who's watched a bunch of war movies that are like engaging in the conflict in different senses. So this was a whole different one that I enjoyed. So Merry Christmas, Mr. Lawrence. It's available to, you know, rent or check out, but if you want to stream it right now, it's on Criterion Channel. So we got a few minutes left. Do you want to do your PSA for Goodbye Dragon Inn?
Sure. I would like to give a PSA that people should watch the movie Goodbye Dragon Inn by Tsai Ming-liang. This is a movie from 2003. It's a Taiwanese film. Tsai Ming-liang is a director of many great films, some of which we've talked about on the podcast. Rebels of the Neon God, Days was on our top 10 list last year, I believe. The whole Stray Dogs, What Time Is It There was one of my favorites. This movie is about a theater that is shuttering. Or we're kind of in its last days before it shutters. It seems like that is an inevitability that's going to happen. And you are watching people watch the movie Dragon Inn by King Hu. And it's like 80 minutes long, and almost the entirety of that 80 minutes is in the theater watching people watch this movie. And watching the various ways in which they interact with it or don't interact with it. And it is a really thoughtful, beautiful, powerful exploration of like the nature of cinema, if that's not too pretentious for you. It is definitely like an art movie, and you should not watch it if you are not down for that. There are only 2 dialogue scenes in the movie, and they are both pretty scarce dialogue. It is a movie that Pichapong Weerasethakul has called the greatest movie of all time, though he has only seen it one time, and he saw it in a language he didn't understand, and he fell asleep during it, which I think is just a great encapsulation of both the way a Pichapong Weerasethakul engages with art and what's great about this movie, because you don't necessarily need to understand the dialogue scenes to understand this movie. You could watch it in a foreign language unsubtitled and still get the gist. So much of it is just communicated visually. A lot of what people are doing in the film is actually not watching the film at all, but cruising for gay sexual encounters. There's like this ritualistic quality to the way that various men will sit right next to another man in an almost empty theater as like a way of communicating that he's interested in something, and then moves away after a certain amount of time has passed with the other person not expressing any reciprocal interest.
He's like, dude, I'm watching Dragon Inn.
I'm trying to watch Dragon Inn.
Can
you
please?
You have people eating loudly during the movie. You have an usher, a woman who's working as an usher but doesn't really have a lot to do during the movie, and so you see her like eat this bun that she's steamed and like walk around in the back corridors of the theater and look for the projectionist who she has a crush on. It is like both nothing happens and lots of ruminations are had about like the nature of film and like the changing nature of like the theatrical experience. I'm reading the Nick Pinkerton book about this movie right now, and he has this amazing introduction in that book where he talks about the shift over from like celluloid film projection to like purely digital film projection in theaters, and the way that has had like these huge ripple effects at the same time that COVID has changed people's relationship to theaters, and Disney has kind of dominated the multiplex in a way that has pushed out most other content that would be vying for people's attention. And so, if you have ever asked yourself the question, like, is cinema dying? Is this a dying art form? This is a movie that is worth watching and pondering over, as, the very, very small number of people are watching this classic wuxia film, 2 of which are people who are in the wuxia film, and sort of lamenting the fact that there's not an audience here to see this movie. It is also a movie that is very, I think, attuned to the meditative nature of watching movies. Like, going to see a movie in a theater is like committing to sitting in silence in the dark for usually about 2 hours or more, around a bunch of strangers who are having this sort of collective hallucination with you. And this movie is kind of an encapsulation of that in a really beautiful way. It is one of my favorite movies, actually. I've seen it twice now. It is better on a rewatch. I recommend watching it late at night, where you might kind of like slip in and out of consciousness. I think that is, similar to a Pichapong's movies, that is maybe an intended effect here. But if you are like awake and alert and focused, it is a very rewarding watch, for many reasons, one of which is that it's a very funny movie. There is a really funny scene in which that like cruising ritual gets done in a bathroom, and a man goes to use a urinal right next to another man, even though there's like 10 urinals open, and they both just like stand there for a really long time not talking to each other, and then a third man walks in and uses the urinal right next to the other two guys, and none of them talk to each other. They just like keep standing there with their penises out, assumingly. And then like a fourth person comes out of the stall behind them, and then after that person's been washing his hands for a little while, you see the hand of a fifth person reach out and grab the stall door and close it, and it's like a Jacques Tati bit or something like that. It's really, really funny in like this quiet, protracted way, that is like very much like it is intertwining all of these like people's individual stories with like their relationship to cinema and the theatrical experience. It's really great. People should watch it.
Is it a good one if you've never seen any Meng Lee?
I think so. I think that this is, I mean, it is a difficult watch. All of his movies are difficult watches, but I don't think this is a movie that like you need to see anything else in his filmography to see. And from the ones that I've seen, I think it's his best film and maybe one of his most accessible. Rebels of the Neon God is much more accessible than this, but it is doing a totally different thing. That's like his take on Rebel Without a Cause or something like that, and this is much more like Simon Lang, like operating in his artistic mode that he is usually operating in, and you can. It seems like you can rent it from the Metrograph. Is that a thing you can do? Letterboxd is saying you can rent it from the Metrograph. Yeah, you can. Or you can do what I did and buy the fancy new Blu-ray that Second Run Films did, that includes an essay by Pitchapong Morris Ethical. Strongly recommend. Really neat little package.
I might try it out. I like a good sleepy movie. I like a good sleep movie.
You would like it, Zach. This is your shit.
Well, we're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to be coming back. We're all going to have fedoras. We're going to be talking like this, eh? And we're going to talk some Blast of Silence.
One of us might get
whacked. Blast of Silence, 1961. After this.
You get spotted before the hit. The contract's off. You understand me?
Yeah, I understand you.
You're going to be party to an attempt to kill a man. This is the asphalt jungle. This is New York City, with its fancy women and fancy hoodlums, with its very special beat, its very special places, its hunters and hunted.
And we're back with part 2 of episode 435 of Cinematary. In this part, we're going to be continuing our quick Patreon picks series with 1961's Blast of Silence, directed by Alan Barron from a script by Barron and Waldo Salt. The film stars Barron, Molly McCarthy, and Larry Tucker. A hitman comes to New York to kill a gangster and gets the gun from a big guy with a beard. A lot more happens, but I just like that that's the logline when you Google this movie. Blast of Silence was filmed in New York City on a budget of $65,000. Writer, director, actor Alan Barron and producer Merrill Brody made the film independently through their Malda Productions, shooting in 22 days spread over a 4-month period ending January 1960. New York City locations include Brooklyn, Staten Island, and Manhattan, where some interiors were reportedly filmed at a small studio on West 45th Street. The January 18, 1961 Variety announced the involvement of Dan Enright and Alfred Crown's Aladdin Productions and Universal International Films, which had acquired the U.S. and Canadian distribution rights for the film. Universal's international payout to Barron and Brody was listed as a flat $60,000, which they ultimately saw as a poor deal and suspected the studio would profit, quote, many times that sum for ticket sales. They were like, this is the shit that people are wanting to go see. Brody was quoted as saying the film's gross would be, quote, over $500,000. Brody, the early James Cameron of just going, this is how much money it's gonna make. Blast of Silence opened in early June 1961 in Chicago on a double bill with 1961's Trouble in the Sky. The film was accepted as a U.S. entry at the Spoleto Film Festival in Italy and the Locarno International Film Festival in Switzerland. It was also an invited entry at the Cannes Film Festival in 1961. The fistfight scene was filmed in Long Island during Hurricane Donna, which happened from September 10th through 12th, 1960, the only hurricane of the 20th century to blanket the entire East Coast from South Florida to Maine. The narration in the film was written by blacklisted Waldo Salt, using the name Mel Davenport, and read uncredited by blacklisted Lionel Stander. In 1961, the New York Times said, clearly this man doesn't relate to society, in reference to the Alan Barron character. Or could it be the other way around? Mr. Barron's enigmatic script avoids easy explanations, but judging from the evidence, the unhappy hero may just have been traveling with the wrong crowd. Much of the confusion in this curious little film seems implicit in the mixed intentions of its stubbornly independent creators. Operating on a minute budget with unknown actors, a handheld camera, and a minimum of technicians, this do-it-yourself team obviously wanted to be offbeat and, quote, arty, while still conforming to Hollywood's tested commercial formulas. The result is simultaneously awkward and pretentious. Yeah, I was like, all right. Real quickly before we jump in, I do want to, Chad Newsom, who picked the film for us, sent over a note. So I kind of wanted to just read his comments because he rewatched the film before we recorded this. He said, I think the film is one of the surprises of 1960s American cinema and one of the best films of that era, too. It feels like a long-lost collaboration between Scorsese and De Niro, with a dash of Godard and Melville's Le Samurai thrown in. In terms of its story, it goes totally against the kinds of values Hollywood celebrated, and every time I watch it, its bleakness and cynicism are so striking, from the opening train birth canal metaphor to the cold, muddy death. And the things HW movies, or Hollywood movies, teach us to celebrate: relationships, family, home, free enterprise. Those values in this movie are associated with the corrupt criminal Frankie's been hired to kill. Plus, unlike so many gangster films or film noirs that are criminal anti-heroes as protagonists whose character arcs are often follow an American dream narrative about making it big or being somebody, this movie suggests no such hope. It's just another Christmas, another job, another hit, and Frankie is totally alone in the world with no chance of human connection or peace or happiness, which is why the contrast the Christmas setting and its implied optimism is ingenious. In terms of the film's style, I love the dock portrait of New York City, the roughness of the film's aesthetic at times, and the beauty of the inventiveness, too, of certain shots, like after he kills Ralphie and the camera holds on Frankie as he walks from a distance right into the camera. And then there's the voiceover narration with its diesel engine tone. Bonus points for whoever can say, "Baby boy Frankie Bono," in the best gravelly gangster accent.
We were trying our best before we started recording.
Yeah,
but Zach couldn't make it not sound British.
Yeah, it got very British. I don't know what was going on. But yeah, Blast of Silence. So that's a little primer from Chad. What did you make of this little film?
I liked it. It is a very odd singular film, like Chad says. It makes sense to me that this was like shoestring budget, a handful of people. I didn't make the connection that the director was also the lead actor until you mentioned it in your intro, Zach. But it does feel very much like a passion project of just a few folks. One thing that I was really struck by was the narration, which I saw in the opening credits is written and done by a different person than wrote the script. And so I kind of wonder about the process of making the movie and like at what point did the narration get written, because it seems so integral to what the film is doing that I can't really imagine a version of this movie without that narration. I feel like it would be either really boring or really nihilistic if it did not have the narration. Because as it stands, the movie is really psychologically interesting, where you have this narrator kind of talking either about the main character or talking to the main character. It might be his own interior monologue addressing himself in the second person, or it might be some sort of metafictional thing. But regardless of what the reality of that is, it gives a level of emotional depth to this guy who otherwise just looks like this cold, unfeeling, robotic machine of death. But hearing this narration really suggests that he's grappling with the meaninglessness of what he's doing, and maybe for the first time, like fully acknowledging that this life of solitude that he has almost fetishized for so long is just leading him to a dead end.
Well, it's kind of like something that I think crops up. That becomes more modern as like as the anti. And like I'm thinking now of just kind of more modern TV that's like really glorified the anti-hero, and it's like, that's usually like they like have that peak, and then it's just all about the how are they going to get more and more and more and more corrupt. And I don't necessarily feel like he gets more and more and more corrupt. It's just kind of he gets to this point and he's like, well, what if I changed? And the kind of the system he has in place is like, no, like there's no getting out of this and going straight. There's no digging in deeper. It's just no, you're just flesh that we have to do this.
He's just a worker in the worst gig economy imaginable. Yeah. Where once you're no longer profitable to the company, we're gonna kill you.
Yeah, and he's somebody also who just, I think of other kind of more modern anti-heroes, and like the reason that like we, like people really like latch onto them, people like Walter White from Breaking Bad or something like that, is like there is like this charm. There's like this, they're kind of like, yeah, he's the bad guy, but also I like being around him. There's nothing that really says that you want to be around this guy. He like seems like completely socially inept. From the scenes when he goes to see, what is the dude's name? Where's the fat guy with the beard, as they say, the big guy with the beard, Big Ralph. Whenever he goes to see him, not that Big Ralph is like the king of conversation, but like there's just like this like just like circle and square just kind of hitting each other the entire time.
Yeah. Ralph wants him to stay and have a drink.
Like just kind of, it's like going to see like a weed dealer. He's like, I'm going to give you the gun, but you got to hang out for a while. And he's just like, no, just give me the gun. And even like when he goes and sees, what's her name? Lori, like she also is kind of just like, yeah, like she's more like, yeah, let's just sit here. We can hang out. And he like try to like make up like a weird pass at her. And she's like, what are you doing? And and he just doesn't really,
in the first or second scene of the movie, that it's when he's intersecting with the guy who's going to give him the name of the person he needs to kill, and the narration talks about how he's about to come up on a bad spot, like the first bad spot. I think that's the language, the narration. But the thing that's bad about it is not that this is going to end up being this big chase scene, or he's gonna get caught or anything like that. It's just that he has to have social interaction with another human being, and that is this guy's worst nightmare. It seems like maybe he's chosen this life because it's one that necessitates a certain amount of distance from other people. And so that is only really disrupted when he intersects with what seems to be an old friend from college or high school or something like that. And he deeply wants to get out of that interaction as soon as the guy spots him, and attempts to in some really awkward ways. But because he's sort of like strong-armed into this more social setting of the Christmas party that he goes to, that's the moment where he kind of realizes like, oh, maybe having a life completely disconnected from other people is unhealthy for me. Maybe it would be nice to talk to people from time to time.
Yeah, that's where like the setting of it being in like Christmas, especially like in New York, really plays into it, because it's kind of, it's Christmas in New York. You think of any other New York Christmas movie, it's all about like they're gonna get together, or the family gets together, or like, you know, it's all about this kind of community coming together as one. And this guy, like I love the scenes where he's just kind of like walking down the streets, and there's like Christmas trees and there's lights in the stores and things like that, and he's almost like walking against those. It's like he's walking against the wind, but the wind is just like Christmas energy. And it's great because it, you know, I think just, you mentioned before, like, this is a Christmas movie, but it's never really like explicitly wanting to be a Christmas movie. It's more just that kind of accentuates the kind of loneliness and the distance of the character, because that's like the biggest community comes together holiday.
Yeah, we did a series called Not Christmas several years back. We watched
This
a
would have
bunch
been
of
perfect.
we watched a bunch of movies that were not like traditionally seen as Christmas movies, but were set during Christmas and were like exploring themes that were relevant to Christmas. And usually those themes are the one that you're talking about, Zach. It's about family, it's about togetherness, it's about community. And this is an interesting case in that, because it's the opposite of those things, but you're seeing the backdrop of Christmas just sort of in the periphery of the film. And so it's kind of about those things in the inverse. You're seeing what the absence of those things feels like for somebody.
Well, you even think about one of the movies we talked about in that series, Die Hard, which is not a, you know, you could be like, oh, it's not a Christmas movie, but it ends with like him reconnecting with his family, you know. And in this one, it's just like, again, like, that's what's kind of interesting about this character, is that it's not that like he tries and fails. It's kind of like you don't even have the choice to try. Like, it's like, this is what it is. And there's only really one path forward. I liked the thing that Chad mentioned, just kind of talking about how, you know, all the criminal anti-heroes, they usually have, like, you know, American dream, making it big, being someone. And, you know, this one is just, you know, another Christmas, another job, another hit. Just, you know, all that stuff, all that human connection is just kind of completely left out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, maybe the movie that we talked about in that old Christmas series that this is most relatable to would be Eyes Wide Shut, where you have Tom Cruise just kind of wandering this city on his own for most of the very long runtime of that movie. But in the case of Eyes Wide Shut, like, he has lots of social interactions, and he's very charismatic and good at like gaming those social interactions and finding a way to get a leg up on whoever he's talking to, whether it be through money or influence or just his sheer charisma. And this is a movie about a guy who's just like trying to avoid any social interaction at all costs. And like just the sheer loneliness of how that feels.
Chad mentioned that shot, the specifically like right after he kills Ralph, and that is a gorgeous shot where, yeah, you have like kind of two buildings to the side. You have the street completely open. It's like kind of sunrise to a degree. It's in black and white though, and yeah, you just kind of see his figure pop up and then like walk toward the camera. And it is the super long sequence, but deeply effective. Like, you know, like a kind of a perfect. I just, you know, had to kind of spur of the moment kill this guy that really wasn't my intended target. That's kind of going off script to a degree, and you know, it reminded me a little bit of like an Ozu movie where he always has the pillow shot where it's like, here's where the family like gets into it. They really dig deep into the drama, into like what's really hurting at them, like, and kind of it's passive aggressive and just kind of hitting. And then it goes to like a pillow shot of like, you know, an empty street or a beach, or, you know, somebody riding a bike, you know, that just kind of sits there for a few minutes. Then you go back to the narrative. It almost feels similar to that, where it's like that's where you process.
And like, it is a shot where he is alone in the center of the frame, very far away from, you know, anything else, any other visual information in the image. And you just like stick with him for a very long time. And it comes right after a bit of narration, I believe, where it's talking about the feeling of anxiety or paranoia that he now has after having to kill this guy. And he says, like, that bad feeling is not going to go away until it's in and out of the news. And so then, like, punctuating that, you know, the again, like, the interiority of a trope that we're used to seeing in cinema, like the hired gun. Like, the hired gun has feelings. The hired gun is worried about what's going to happen to him after killing a person that he wasn't originally intending to kill, which is a thing that happens in crime movies all the time. Like, anytime somebody gets in the character's way, they just, like, get gunned down, and the character, like, you know, just goes on to the next thing. But you are left to kind of sit with this worry that the character has for a long time, and then you have to sit and watch him make, like, this almost walk of shame back to his apartment as he's just, like, you know, it visually looks like this stoic guy with blank affect that we're used to seeing in these kinds of movies, but we know from the narration that he's, like, shaking with panic on the inside.
It's also like it's not a very showy movie. I think it's part of it because of the budget, but I mean, probably the time when he kills Ralphie is the, like, probably the biggest, like, most action-y scene you get, because it's very physical. Like, he doesn't, like, just go in there and go pop. Like, there's, like, a lot of, like, back and forth fighting and everything. It's much more physical. But when he actually does the hit he was hired to come here and do, it's pretty quick. It's very, you know, it's very quick. It kind of happens. He plans it out. He does it. Moves on.
Yeah, you get the sense that he's very good at his job. This is the thing that he's done, you know, dozens of times. It's routine. It's the kill that he's not expecting to have to do that really rattles him.
Yeah, it's just kind of that. You know, I think a lot today, you just kind of get that style. Like, you know, you kind of have to add this style to the moment. And this kind of just reminded me of you know, kind of stripping down the style and making it very bare bone is just as effective. Because, again, like, you see it, it's not very exciting, but you're like, yeah, he's clearly very good at his job. It's not a whole production, you know. He kills the guy, he sets it up, he walks out the door.
Right. You know, Chad in his intro, or the note that he wrote to us, mentioned it's, like, one of the most interesting movies of the 1960s. And one other, like, interesting singular 60s movie this reminds me of is George Romero's Night of the Living Dead, which was also this shoestring budget passion project made by a handful of friends. And because of the limitations, I guess, of their production, there is sort of a matter-of-factness to the violence in both of these that I think works really well with the subject matter.
Yeah, it makes it... I think it makes it a little bit more genuine. You know, it doesn't feel... You know, you think of, like... John Wick, or you think of, like, Mission Impossible, or you think of, like, an action movie. When they, like, kill somebody, there's this choreography involved. There's, like, this, you know, this very, like, apparent outward skill to it. And in those, like Night of the Living Dead, it's just kind of like this brief survival moment. It's not something that they've necessarily built up to. It's just, here it is. You got to do something. You have to react. They react, and that's it. And this is the same way. It's just kind of like, no, he did his job. He's completed. He's done. And I think that kind of adds this genuine nature to these characters.
And if there was a bunch of flashy fight choreography or innovative camera tricks to the cinematography, that would sort of glamorize what this character is doing. And that's not really the intention of the movie. Like, it wants this to feel bad. It wants it to feel kind of like hollow and meaningless. And I think it... you know, in a Mission Impossible or a John Wick, you know, the way in which they show the character's hypercompetence is their ability to kind of get in and out of these, like, extremely chaotic, unpredictable environments. But the character that we have here is a character who's so good at like regimenting and planning his life that he never has to get into situations like that, right? Like he's just gonna be in a room with the person he's trying to kill alone, and that person's going to turn a corner and he's going to shoot him, and that's going to be the end of the interaction, right? And the scene where he has to kill Ralphie, is that the guy's name?
Yeah, Ralphie, Big Ralph.
Like that is not a glamorous fight scene by any measure. You know, they're like really grappling with each other in this sort of unglamorous, uncinematic way, just kind of fumbling in the dark. Because neither of them is really equipped for the situation that they're in.
Yeah, it's it is. It's just it's like the apotheosis of antithesis. I mean of like a John Wick scene, which is very like choreographed. You can like kind of see how they've structured each thing. This one is just like, I don't know. Like you kind of think you kind of think your main character might die in this because it's just so uncoordinated for the most part. It's interesting too, the last scene where he's killed. Not to spoil a movie that's like 6 years old, but
that's the only way this movie really can end.
Yeah, like
it can't end with him getting what he wants and going off to start a family somewhere. Not only does he's not able to get out of this criminal syndicate he's involved in, but even if he did, the woman that he's imagining a life with is like not actually interested in him. She was just kind of being nice or being friendly.
Clearly they had some history at a time, but it wasn't anything like substantial. It was just he doesn't have much interaction, so she's like she's it for him. But no, even that, like he comes into it, and it's not like the Ralph scene when he knows what he's getting into. Like he knows what's about to happen. He just kind of gets overpowered because there's two guys and he doesn't have anywhere to really go. He kind of almost gets out of it to a degree, but yeah, like it's just kind of, even then it's very matter of fact. It's not very stylish. It's just kind of, this is you're in the mud now.
And neither of those guys who kill him or contribute to killing him are characters. We don't really even see their faces that well. We don't get names. We don't get backstories. They're just other guys who have been hired to do a job, and their job is to kill the guy who's decided to not do jobs for us anymore. It's so impersonal and casual, along the same lines as the violence we've seen in the rest of the film. You don't really even get a sense of like, what is this organization he's working for really like trying to do? Like, who are the people that they're trying to target? It's just all kind of empty and meaningless.
Yeah, the guy who he kills, like, I mean, Chad mentioned it also. It's just it seems like a pretty well off guy. It's not like he's maybe I'm remembering it incorrectly. It doesn't seem like he's like a rival hitman syndicate or something. It's just like,
right,
he's just kind of,
you learn almost nothing about him.
Yeah, he's just kind of, he's like, you go to his house, he's clearly pretty wealthy. And that's kind of,
he's cheating on his wife. I think that's the only really substantive thing we learn.
But yeah, it's not like it's like you don't get scenes for, I mean, the movie's an hour and 17 minutes, so you're not getting like prolonged sequences of like meeting the gang, like whoever what the hell is the guy's name? Frankie Bono. That's it. Frankie Bono. You don't like get to meet the leader of whoever Frankie Bono works for. Yeah. And so like it's funny, Chad mentioned this feels like an early Scorsese and De Niro collaboration.
The guy kind of looks like De Niro.
Yeah, I could see it, but at the same time, it's like it's too cut down. Like again, like Scorsese would have probably been like an hour 45 because he would have had to give some character to who was like instigating these things.
Yeah, there's the discourse that I remember popping up on Twitter every now and then of like the extent to which Scorsese is glamorizing the characters in his movies.
I bet he likes this movie. I'm going to look that up while you talk.
He probably does. But I think that one argument, or one point to that argument's favor, is that he does kind of play it up and make it flashy and make it fun and like give these characters like interesting, witty banter. And you don't get that in this movie at all. Like it's so pared down that there's very little possibility that anybody could watch this and think like, you know what, being a hitman actually does seem kind of cool.
Yeah, of course he has. Martin Scorsese, who was studying film at NYU when the picture came out, regularly cites it as a key New York movie, and periodically it gets rediscovered and dragged out of the shadows. Of course he saw this movie. It seems right up his alley. But yeah, I don't know. I think overall I really enjoyed it. It's just kind of like a good penny novel kind of movie. Like it, we could probably talk for a little bit longer, but the podcast would be longer in total as the movie, which is weird. But I think I enjoyed it overall. It was a pretty easy watch to a degree. I really liked just the kind of push and pull between, Christmas and this character and just kind of how we envision New York at Christmas time. And I think just like a solid overall noir that kind of bucks a little bit of the stuff that can kind of get tedious if you're like going through the kind of Hollywood system of noirs and outputs.
Noir can also be very confusing, I find. The plots can be really intricate, and there's often a lot of double crossing and mysteries, and in The Third Man you have Orson Welles' character who's like this shadowy figure who doesn't show up until like halfway through the movie, and this is so straightforward and matter of fact that it might be something that I would recommend people watch if they've not seen a lot of noir movies, that like you can kind of understand the like hard-boiled vibes of this genre in a very like short, digestible, like thematically clear package, because noir can also be kind of like thematically murky too.
The only unfortunate thing about it is that, and I didn't mind it, but it can almost be viewed as like an amalgamation of all the noir tropes. I mean, you just kind of have like this shadowy gunman. You have the gravelly voiceover.
You have jazz.
Yeah, you have jazz. You have this great score. You have it's black and white. You got a dame. It kind of hits all those tropes, but I think I think in its simplicity it works well. If you can kind of look past it just being, at times, feeling like almost an SNL skit of a noir movie.
Yeah, I think that the simplicity is like maybe both a bug and a feature, depending on what you want from your noir.
Yeah, it just kind of it depends on your mileage, but it is I'll say it's in the Criterion Collection. It has that there. It wasn't on the channel this month when I was watching. I don't know how you watched it, Andrew. I watched this cut of it that wasn't a great cut on archive.org, and the sound was delayed.
Oh, no.
So I mean, I made it work, but I would like to rewatch this again with like the Criterion version, like on Criterion.
I watched a Criterion DVD that my public library had, and it seemed like a much better viewing experience than you had.
Well, it was pretty entertaining because like you just hear them talking and you see like him beating the shit out of Ralph, and you're like, well, something's about to happen. And then it like catches up. Like, oh, okay. But yeah, no, thumbs up on Blast of Silence.
Definitely better than The Heart is a Lonely Hunter, I gotta say.
If this dude showed up in Selma, Alabama, and just took out some of those characters, yeah, this would have been a perfect meshing of it. Honestly, if Frankie Bono showed up there and was the one who killed the Alan Arkin character, that would make more sense than what actually happens in that movie.
It would, yeah.
All right, well, that'll wrap up this episode of Cinematary. You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/Cinematary, on Letterboxd, or Twitter and Instagram at handle @Cinematary, and on Letterboxd at letterboxd.com/Cinematary, where we post all the movies that we talked about in this episode. If you would like to support the show, and next time we have a Patreon pick series, you can give us a suggestion. Thanks to our patrons, Cam, Chad Newsom, Candace Sisson, Ron Hayes, Teresa Marthathi, Titus Arthur, and Tyler Chandler. We appreciate the support. Next week, we're going to be doing our best of the year, our top 10, Cinematary top 10 thing, which I'm going to definitely send the ballots out tonight. But we're going to be doing our Cinematary top 10 movies of the year. What will it be?
I think it's going to be...
I don't know.
Knock at the Cabin by M. Night Shyamalan is going to be our number one movie of the year. Calling it right now.
If we let Reed get involved, then yeah, it will be. I don't know. It's funny. For whatever reason, I've been getting labeled as like being a pretentious movie person, which isn't a new thing. I don't think that label's going to apply when I like put out my top 10, which I'll just, let me just,
give us a little sneak
spoilers. Sneak peek will include RRR.
Oh, yeah.
Include Michael Bay's Ambulance.
Wow.
Will include Top Gun Maverick.
Wow.
And will include Jackass Forever.
Yeah.
There's
interesting.
4 of the 10
Let me
right
see if
there.
I have a sneak peek for you. Do I still have this list? I might have deleted my 2022. Oh, I have a Disney movie on my list.
That's where we're...
Turning Red
That's
is
how
in my
crazy-
top 10.
That's how crazy we're getting now. I need to rewatch Turning Red.
Turning
I like
Red's
that too.
great.
I don't know. It's like there's a bunch of stuff from the beginning of the year that I didn't totally dislike that I kind of want to rewatch. That I feel like I'm gonna forget. Like we were talking off mic about After Yang, which was a movie that I enjoyed. But that came out like in March, and it was like kind of in theaters, but then it was one of those weird A24 things where it was kind of in theaters, but then it ended up on Showtime, and I'm like, what the fuck is it doing on Showtime? Nobody is. So anyway, but yeah, that's next week. We'll do the top 10 and go through our top 10 list, so you can judge my pretentiousness as I lose my shit over Ambulance, which is still fucking awesome. Until then, thank you all for listening and watching. We'll see you next week.